Chapter 12. Sure seems strange having Shiloh in the house that night, after trying so hard to keep him a secret. Strange, too, the way Ma takes to him. Seems like she can't hardly pass his box next to the stove without reaching down and petting him. He making low sympathy noises in her throat the way she does when Darylyn or Becky gets sick. Dad don't say much. He come home to find Shiloh there. He just stands off to one side, listening to what Doc Murphy said about him. He don't get close enough for Shiloh to take a lick. But when supper's over and I go off to the bathroom to brush my teeth, I peek back through the doorway, and Dad's over by Shiloh's box, letting him lick the plate clean. Dad crouches there a minute or two, scratching down Shiloh's back and back up again. What I'm figuring, you see, is by the time Shiloh's better, everybody will love him so much they just can't let him go, even Dad. I'm hoping Dad will go over see Judge Travers, make an offer for Shiloh, and then he'll be ours. The trouble with this kind of thinking, though, we don't have the money. I'll probably be through junior high school almost before I end up paying enough for Doc Murphy bill. To buy Shiloh from Judd, even if Judd's willing to sell, I'd have to collect aluminum cans all through high school, too. Can't make very much with the cans. I try to think about another kind of work that I could do that would pay me more. Except for delivering the country paper on Friday afternoons, nothing else comes to mind, and somebody's got that job already. It's sort of like Shiloh's there and he's not. The next couple of days, everybody's petting him. Every chance they get, Becky feeds him. The crust of her toast breaks off little bits and shrieks every time she feels Shiloh's mouth slurp them out of her fingers. Ma's putting up beans in jars, all the while she's humming to Shiloh like he's a baby in the cradle. Not a dog in a box. Darlene's got an old hairbrush, and she just can't seem to brush that dog enough. Even Dad sits down one evening and gets out every tick out of Shiloh's got on him. Takes a dab of turpentine and rubs it on the tick's ear end, and the tick backs up out of Shiloh's skin, mighty and quick. The thing that makes it seem Shiloh's not there is that nobody except me and Dana, Lynn, and Becky talks to him. Ma and Dad even once mention his name out loud, as though saying it makes it ours, which it ain't. Which he ain't. As though if you talk about him, maybe he'll disappear as quietly as he can't come by that one day in the rain. What everybody's waiting for, I guess, is something to happen. Every day, Shiloh's getting a little stronger. 2 days after Doc Murphy brought him here, Shiloh's up limping around on his bad leg. Ma put some papers beside the box him to do his business on, but he won't. So far, the first couple days, I pick him up and carry him out and bring him out in the yard again. But now he's pushing open the back screen himself and going down into the yard, and coming back up and tapping the screen with his one paw to let you know he's back, so let him in. Somebody sometime is bound to see him. Becky sometime bound to say something. Even David Howard, when his ma came to pick him up the other day, opens his mouth right off. Something about Shiloh. Who's Shiloh? She asks David, realizes he's let it slip. Old stray cat, he says. And now I've got David lying. Worst part about having Shiloh here is that it's hard to leave him when I go out collecting cans, but I've got to earn some money now more than ever. So each day when Shiloh takes his long nap, I set out my plastic garbage bag hanging out on my jeans pocket. And one day, I walked all the way to Friendly and asked the grocery store where the country paper was dropped if they'll put my name on as a carrier. Mr. Wallace says he'll turn my name in, but he's already got 6 names ahead of me, and one of them is a grown man with a car. Don't see how I can match that. I studied the bulletin board at the back of the store where people put up notices. I stand on the foot of one and reading the whole dang board. Seems like everybody's got something to sell, or they want to be hired. Nobody wants to buy. Only 2 jobs listed. One for an appliance salesman and some woman who wants her house painted. Mr. Wallace sees me looking at the board, and he comes over and takes down the notice about the woman wanting her house painted. That's already taken, he tells me. That night, while we finish up supper, Shiloh's going around the table, putting his nose in everybody's lap, looking mournful, waiting for somebody to slip him something to eat. I can tell Ma and Dad's trying their best not to laugh. Ma won't let us feed him at the table. What I'm dying to ask Dad is if he tell Judd about this dog being here. Dad don't mention it, so I don't ask. Maybe I don't want to know, I tell myself. And then, just as Ma's dishing up the peach cobbler that we're going to heat hot with milk, I hear a sound outside that makes my bones feel like icicles inside me. Shiloh hears it too. And I know right away what it is. I think it is, because Shiloh sticks his tail between his legs, has put his belly low on the floor, and climbs back to the box. Ma and Dad look at Shiloh. They look at each other. And then there's a slam of a truck door outside, the footsteps in the ground, footsteps on the porch, and rap, 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 rap on the back door. And everybody stops eating, like we're all froze to death in our chairs. Dad gets up and turns the porch light, and there he is, Judd Travers, looking mean and nasty as I've ever seen him look. He don't even ask if he can come in. He just opens the green screen door and steps inside. "Ray Preston," he says, "somebody told me you got my dog." Dad's looking serious. He nods over and points towards the box of the stove. "Over there, Judd, but he's hurt, and we've been taking care of him for you." Judd stares at Shiloh and then at Dad. "Well, I'll be danged," he says almost softly. "Somebody knows my dog is missing, takes him in, and don't even have the decency to tell me?" "We were going to tell you," Dad says, and he's looking right at Judd. "Nobody wants to hear his dog's been hurt, though, and we wanted to make sure he was going to pull through." Then turns to me. "Marty," he says, "you want to tell Mr. Travers how this dog came to be here?" He knows I don't. He knows I'd rather swim through a river of crocodiles to face Judd Travers. But it's my story to tell, not Dad's. And he always did make a face up with what we done. "Your dog came over here twice because you've been mistreating it," I say. And my voice don't sound near as strong as Dad's, sort of quavery. And I clear my throat and go on. "So the second time he came over here, I built him up a pen in the woods. Dad didn't know about it, and the German Shepherd of the Bakers got in it and fought Shiloh." "Fought who?" "The Beagle, Shiloh. That's what I've been calling him. And Shiloh got hurt real bad. It was my fault for not making the fence higher. We took him to Doc Murphy's, and he patched him up." Judge Travers is still staring around the room, like he never saw the likes of us before. Finally, he lets his breath out, and his teeth slowly shakes his head. "And I got to find out all this from Doc Murphy?" I couldn't believe Doc would go tell him. "Somebody goes to the doc the other day and sees a beagle lying on the back porch and tells me about it later. Says he thinks it may be the dog of mine. So I ride over to Doc's this evening, and he tells me it was you who brought him in." Judd walks across the kitchen, and the thud of each footstep, Shiloh huddles down farther and farther into the box, like maybe he can make himself disappear. His whole body is shaking. Ma sees it, and I know because she watches for a minute, then turns her face away quick. Judd stares down at Shiloh and at his bandage in his shaved place where he had all stitched up and ripped up ear. "Look at what you've done to my dog," he yells at me, big eyes and angry. I swallow. Nothing I can say to that. Travers squats down by the box. He puts out his hand, and Shiloh leans away like he's going to be hit. If that don't prove the way that he treats them, I don't know what would. But Judd's saying, "I've never mistreated my dogs. This one was shy when I got him. That's all. I never caused him to be injury like that to this one. Wouldn't have ever had happen if you brought him back like I told you." And I close my eyes. When I open them again, Judd's putting his hand on Shiloh's head, rough like, sort of patting him. You can tell he ain't got that much practice in being kind. Still, hard to prove that Shiloh wasn't mistreated before he got to Judd's. How to know proving something like that? "It was wrong of Marty to pen up your dog, Judd. And we've already talked to him about that," Dad says. "He's the one who's going to pay Doc Murphy for patching him up. And soon as the dog is strong, we'll drive him over to your place. Why don't you let us keep him until then, in case he needs more care?" Judd stands up and looks at me and stares. I stare back, but I don't say nothing. And then Ma can't take it anymore, and she said, "Judd, Marty's got awful attached to that dog, and we'd like to know how much you want for it. Maybe we can scrape up the money to buy him." Judd looks at her like she's talking some kind of nonsense, like we've been getting crazier by the minute. "That dog's not for sale," he says. "Pay good money for him to get me a hunting dog. He could be one of the best I've ever had. You want to keep him and feed him till he's better? That's okay with me. It's you that got him all tore up, and you're paying the bill. But I want him back by Sunday. Screen door slams, truck starts up, and he's gone.